Marianne, are you there in the courtroom?
Yeah, hi, good afternoon, Mark. How are you? Can you hear me?
Mr. Awad and Ms. Khan. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Our office, thank you. Our office received a message from Mr. Landau that he is in another court. It is 12:30. This is the sole thing I have on my docket. Thank you, Mr. Landau. This is 213-9999 LT Bellevilla Meadows versus Justin Awad. May I have your appearances, please? Mr. Landau, are you still in another court? Mr. Landau, are you still in another court?
Can anybody hear me? I was asked to unmute.
I can hear you. Yes, sir.
Judge, for some reason, I cannot hear you.
Mr. Awad, are you able to hear the court?
Yes,
Now
Your
I
Honor.
am. Now I
Okay.
am.
Your appearance, Mr. Landau?
Mark Land on behalf of the plaintiff.
Mr. Awad,
I'm Justin Awad on behalf of myself.
thank you. Today is the day and time set for the adjourned trial in this matter. The parties were here on October 6th. We started the bench trial on a termination case and then adjourned to this past Friday, October 15th at 1 p.m. When the court called the case, plaintiff's attorney was unavailable, was in 14A with Judge Simpson. So the court adjourned the matter to this afternoon to see if the parties had resolved their outstanding issues or if we needed to continue with the trial. When we broke on October 6th, Mr. Landau was to look into the second round of SARA, that July 26, 2021 statement regarding additional funding. And there was supposed to, I thought there was going to be an inspection of the leaks in the unit. Mr. Landau, from your perspective, where are we this afternoon?
We're most of the way through that, Your Honor. Mr. Awad has allowed management to enter the unit and do the inspection. They now have a contract with a roofer to make the repairs in the unit. The repairs are not an insignificant amount of money. It's going to cost over $14,000 to repair the roof, according to the estimate that I've received from my client. But they are prepared to proceed forward with those repairs. I elicited information from Mr. Awad with respect to the SERA caseworker and the documentation from Mr. Awad that he had presented to the court at the previous hearing. He did send that to me. It took a couple of days, but it was a reasonable period of time for Mr. Awad to get that to me. I have not been able to allocate the time to assemble it and get it over to the SERA worker because it's complicated and it requires me to just literally devote a fair bit of time to analyze it myself and form a cogent statement over to the SERA worker. But I should be able to do that in the next couple of days, but I haven't gotten it to the caseworker yet. So those are those two issues, and the third issue on this matter was just the third dog that Mr. Awad had in his rental unit.
Thank you. Mr. Awad, is that an accurate statement of where the parties are?
I believe, yeah, we're kind of like in a unknown of what's going forward here. I still have my excuse me, Your Honor. I still have my documentation showing that it was paid. And so, I mean, it stands right where we're at.
So, that being the case, Mr. Landau's statement of where the parties are we continuing with this trial? Or Mr. Landau, are you moving to dismiss this complaint and the parties work the balance of these matters out between themselves?
I'm not willing to dismiss the case, Your Honor, but it is going to take some additional time in order to get to the bottom of the SIRA situation. So I guess I would ask for a brief adjournment of that. I would like to find out from Mr. Awad about the dog because I tried to inquire about that by email privately and he just said working on it. So I hope that he has figured out a way to remove the dog. That was at the direction of Your Honor at the first hearing as well, at the first hearing on the trial.
Well, Mr. Landau, before Mr. Awad responds to that or acknowledges that statement from you, we're going to stop for 1 second. I'm going to go grab a calendar for an adjourned date. I know that Mr. Awad, between work and retrieval of children from school, might have some time issues. And I know, Mr. Landau, you are double and triple booked most days. So hold on 1 second. Let me grab a calendar.
Beth, while the judge is looking, if you can unmute and fill me in on what the status is in terms of the roofer getting out there and actually starting the work. Do we know when that's going to happen?
I don't have a date yet. When I spoke with her on Friday, she was going to get a hold of me early this week to get it scheduled. And of course, I've got to give Mr. Awad 48-hour notice. So as soon as I get a date from her, I will reach out to Mr. Awad and see if that date's good for him.
Okay. Do we have any idea of like how soon it may be? Like in the next week, in the next month? Hopefully
Well,
not a month.
Yeah, I'm hoping to have a date within the next week.
Okay. I know contractors are super busy. It's hard to even find contractors these days.
It is,
But-
and they're having difficulty sometimes with materials. So
Right.
they're
Right.
doing their best to get me scheduled as soon as possible.
Okay. I don't know, Mr. Awad, if Ms. Khan or anybody from their office had been in communication with you, but as long as we were all here in this forum, I figured we might as well just keep it simple and get on the same page on that. Did you have any comments or concerns about what Ms. Khan has stated?
No, just, yeah, the first I knew of anything was when I received your email, I think yesterday.
Very good. And I apologize, by the way, for my non-attendance at the previous hearing. Every once in a while, I run into a situation where I'm not able to extract myself from the courtroom and join another courtroom, and that's what happened at the previous hearing.
So, Mr. Landau, I do understand that you are routinely many other places, and I know that getting a response to Sarah is not as easy as snapping a finger or submitting a single email request or making a single phone call. So what do you believe is the necessary amount of time to investigate that July email?
I think another 3 weeks would be appropriate, Judge.
And any idea on when the work will commence on the roof?
Ms. Khan, do you want to fill the court in on that?
Yes, I'm hoping to have something at least scheduled this week. I know that they're a little bit backed up and sometimes it's been difficult finding materials, but she's supposed to get with me this week to get us on the schedule.
3 weeks puts us actually the week of November the 8th, which is a bad week for me. November the 16th, a Tuesday. I know that Mr. Awad has some things to check. His wife might have some things to check. Mr. Landau, are you scheduled to be anywhere as of yet?
I am. Um, I am not available until about 11 a.m., preferably afternoon, just to play things safe.
What was the date?
The 16th, November 16th, that's a Tuesday.
That would work for me.
Okay, I'm just double checking. That's my regular civil day. We have arraignments in the morning. Mr. Landau's not available until the afternoon. I'm double checking our court calendar to make sure that there's nothing else that would conflict with that.
Your Honor, if I might add, just for the afternoon, from 2 to 3, I do have to be away to pick up my son.
I knew that you had child pickup issues or duties. I should not say it's not an issue, it's a duty. I just wanted to look at our civil docket, make sure there was nothing scheduled. We have things scheduled at 1 and 1:15 on that day. If we, Mr. Landau, afternoon, do you mean literally after 12 p.m. or are you talking at some other point in the afternoon?
12 p.m. would be fine. Or 1 p.m. Anytime that afternoon, 100% free.
We'll say noon because I'm looking at the 1 o'clock docket and we already have 1, 2, 3, 4 things scheduled, and I don't want you to have to compete with the civil pretrials. Or hold on one second, I'm just looking at the very next date, which is actually our landlord tenant date, the 17th. See if that day is any better. There is nothing at all for you to contend with on the next day, that Wednesday, the 17th?
Wednesdays are always tough, Judge, because the Ypsi Township court is always on
Nope.
Wednesday afternoons.
Then Mr.
Yeah.
Awad, don't look. Let's say November the 16th. November the 16th at 12 noon. And just so we're all on the same page, when we were here on October 6th, where we left off was Mr. Landau had just started his cross-examination of Mr. Awad regarding the email. So between now and November the 16th, Mr. Landau will investigate the Sarah July 26th email. Mr. Awad has the sole issue from this court's perspective of having a pet beyond what is limited by his agreement with the park. And the park has now had access to the premises and have started to make the arrangements to make the repair. So there were 3 issues before this court for purposes of evaluating Mr. Awad and his family for termination of their tenancy. I believe that 2 of those matters have been addressed. So when we return on November 16th, we will resume Mr. Landau's cross-examination of Mr. Awad.
Your Honor, before we go, I would like to put the issue of the third dog to rest if we can. If Mr. Awad would just confirm that he removed the dog from the premises, as the court had insisted that he do at the previous hearing.
I believe it was recommended, not insisted, but I guess we won't argue semantics. I have been working on it. Our options are limited right now. We've come to realize is that most people that are renting that accept dogs are yes communities, and it doesn't look like that's going to be an option as far as renting. If Belleville Meadows made the repairs to the house, we would be in a position to purchase the house, which was what was always holding us back. But I don't know if that's an option because per our conversations, they just want to terminate the lease in January, no matter what at this point. So I don't know where that, it doesn't look like they're looking to resolve this issue, just kick us out. So I don't know what the issue would be, because if we owned the unit, the 3-pet limit or the 2-pet limit disappears.
Mr. Awad is correct. The court did not order because there had not been a ruling issued. What I did suggest to Mr. Awad is the same thing I just said. The notice to terminate his tenancy were based on 3 very specific issues. 2 of them have been addressed. And if the pet issue is the only outstanding issue, if Mr. Awad wants to keep that as something that's at issue when we return on November 16th, that's his absolute right. I'm recommending that as that is the basis, at least one of the bases for the request to terminate your tenancy, that you might think long and hard about resolving it before the court has to make a ruling one way or the other, whether or not having that 3rd dog, even if it's not technically your dog, but you're keeping it. I thought it was for a breeder, Rolling Hills or whatever the name of the place was. So again, there is no order, just as long as there's this only issue of the dogs or therapy dogs. Rolling Hills was the breeder. Okay. As long as that's the only issue that the court sees, again, I would recommend that you not be a barrier to maintain your tenancy there, Mr. Awad. But that's your personal choice how you proceed. Anything else, Mr. Landau?
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Anything else, Mr. Awad?
Your
No,
Honor,
Your Honor.
can I just make
I'm sorry.
one comment?
He said no, and I would suggest, I'm sorry, Mr. Landau, let me just say this before I forget for the 3rd time. November 1st will be here before we know it. Mr. Awad, you have an ongoing duty to pay rent. There's another payment that comes due before we return, I do believe.
Your Honor, that still is what I'm trying to work out here, because they have not paid me for the initial mold remediation, which should go towards my rent.
Mr. Landau, you were starting to say something before I stopped you.
Yeah, so a couple of things, Your Honor. First of all, I did want to address what Mr. Awad indicated with respect to purchasing the mobile home. That is not going to be made an option for him. So I just wanted to make it clear to him right now. And the reason is that Mr. Awad has just filed a $1.5 million lawsuit against my client in 3rd Circuit Court, which my client was just served with. So he's not
I'm
going-
sorry, just served with, like when served with?
I believe in the last few days. Ms. Khan, can you share with the court the date of that service of process?
Yes, it was Friday. Friday, October 15th.
I'm asking because inasmuch as there is now a case pending between these same parties in circuit court, does this court even have authority to continue on with the trial, or does the filing of the circuit court action stay these proceedings until the circuit court matter is resolved?
It doesn't. They're bifurcated, and the alleged violations have nothing to do with his allegations in the circuit court case.
Okay. So purchase is not an option. There was another issue, Mr. Landau?
Yes, we would ask, in light of Mr. Awad's reluctance to pay rent, we would like an order for escrow.
Your Honor, I would object to that because they still haven't paid towards the monies that I've already had to come up with to make my house safe for my daughter, for all of us. I mean, there was mold. It stunk in the bathroom, and the stuff was just soaking wet, and they wouldn't do anything about it.
Over your objection, this court will enter an order for escrow if Mr. Landau will prepare it and submit it to the civil department.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Next.
That's all the issues that I have before Your Honor this morning.
Thank you. Mr. Awad, anything else from you before we conclude this matter for the afternoon?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. We are all set. See you back here on November the 16th. Thank you for your patience, everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you, Judge. You too.
Thank you.
And I
Have a good day, too.
apologize for my non-appearance on Friday. I just could not get myself out of that other courtroom.
I know I logged on and saw you with Judge Simpson, so I understand. No worries.
Okay.